Yo, honestly, bro, how should I even start this? I don't even know, man. But all I know is welcome yet to another episode of Papi Yap Alot. Hey, aquí estoy con mi cafecito. But a lot of things have been going on lately, and tengo pensamientos. I got thoughts, right? First of all, my Knicks, NBA Finals, baby. Let's go. I'm psyched, right? I'm really hoping the Spurs close out tonight, man. The little kid in me, the 11, 12-year-old little boy in me wants a 99 Finals rematch, right? Get some revenge. Tú sabes, but yeah, anyway, I just lost my train of thought from there. Because the Knicks, baby, the Knicks. But anyway, all right, like I said, a lot of things been happening, and some of the thoughts of this week, right, have been the following, right? One, self-control is, the self-control is the best thing that a man could have, no matter what stage you're at in life. All right. You have self-control, right? It gets you the things that you want. It gets you to places, right? Because and it allows you to keep those things too, by the way. All right. Self-control is the most important thing, if not the most important, right? Thing that a characteristic trait that a man should have, right? And I'm talking about self-control over your mind, right? Self-control over your bodies, right? Self-control over your emotions, especially, right? Self-control, right? And I see a lot of times, right? Well, there's a Bible verse that comes to mind, right? In Proverbs, it says, "A man without self-control is like a city without walls, easily broken into." And to break that down for you a little bit, right? At the time, they would build walls around the city to protect it, right, from anybody coming in, right? Any wars and stuff like that, right? It was the smartest thing to do, right? And that's what that meant, right? Like you don't have protection, right? Without self-control as a man, like you have no protection. Now, going back to the Knicks, right? Knicks fan over here, right? That was our problem last year with Thibodeau, right? We had all offense and no defense. He was an offense first type coach, right? And look, we got far, right? But the only reason why we lost to Indiana, right, was because we got out-coached, right? That was really it. We got out-coached. Our starting five, right, were burnt out, right? And that's why we lost. Now, this year with Mike Brown, things are different, right? We in the finals, baby. We in the finals. You know what I'm saying? So the defense, right, is important, right? Just as important as offense, right? And that's what I think about, these kind of verses, right? As a man, you gotta have the self-control, baby, right? Because one, you won't build for the life that you want. Two, right, when you get to that stage of the things that you actually receiving the things you want, you won't be able to keep it if you don't got self-control. Right, and like I said, we're talking about self-control over mind, right? Self-control over your bodies, self-control over your emotions, right? And where I see dudes fall a lot, right? And you see this in just all throughout history, right? A lot of the great men fall because they got no control over, their bodies, Shoot, they see, women, right, is probably one of the biggest distractions for a man, right? Let me rephrase that. Other women that aren't your wife, right, are our biggest as a married man, our biggest distraction for the life you're trying to build, the good life that you're trying to build. Now, if you're single, right, having a lot of women distracts you from the importance of actually trying to build with one person, you know. And I think that's a lot of the problem that we see nowadays, where everybody's trying to be all nonchalant, and then you see all of these manosphere dudes trying to tell you, all of this stuff, but and at the end that leads to nothing. You don't build anything, right? And you see that in throughout history, right? Solomon, right, said he had 1,000 women, right? 1,000 women. He had like 300 wives and like 700 concubines and whatnot, right? Something like that. And at the end of his life, he was like, yo, this is all vanity. This is all for nothing, right? And you see that a lot with guys that don't have self-control over these things. You see that a lot. And I think that's what makes me think, like, yo, the most important thing that I can have as a man is self-control. Self-control over the body, self-control over my mind, self-control over my emotions, right? And a lot of times when you're in my position now, right? And listen, I'm saying all of this because I'm still learning, right? I think this is a lifelong thing of learning this, right? Building this muscle of self-control, right? Now, in the position that I'm in, where I have a wife and I have a family, right? The self-control for me is not looking at other women or not being with other women, right? Being loyal to my wife, being loyal to my family, my son, right? And having that self-control, right? Because you see a lot of men also, right, like lose that, right? Lose that and lose everything, right? Because of that, without having self-control of loyalty. Not just only being loyal, right? Not sleeping with other women, but also the self-control of emotions, right? Knowing how to regulate your emotions, knowing what you're feeling, right? What's going on in the situation, right? And not just lashing out, right? And I see that a lot, right? Especially with Spanish men, right? Where we got todo machismo and whatnot, right? But like knowing that, like having self-control over your emotions is key to keeping what I want, keeping my family, right? Because the most important thing that I can do for my family is building a safe space for my wife, building a safe space and atmosphere for my son, right? So that they can feel safe and learn and be safe, right? And my wife be herself, right? And me not regulating my emotions does not help with that, right? It doesn't build that. So I have to constantly regulate myself in that sense. You know what I mean? So again, these are just the thoughts for this week. Self-control, man. Have self-control. It's the most important thing that you can have in your life. All right. Besides God, obviously, right? But the most important trait, I should say. All right. Just self-control.